Winter, 1959. 9 young hikers ventured deep into Russia's Ural Mountains. Their goal? To conquer one of the most challenging treks in the Soviet Union and achieve the highest hiking certification. But instead of glory, investigators pieced together their demise. Barely clothed in sub-zero temperatures, some frozen, others with horrific violent trauma, and 2 with their eyes removed. Strange levels of radiation found on some clothes. Helicopters circled the area looking for clues, and the Soviet government quickly silenced the investigation with a chillingly vague conclusion. Over 60 years later, their fate remains one of the greatest mysteries in modern history. This is the story of the Dyatlov Pass Incident. Who are these bright dreamers? They were students and recent graduates from the Ural Polytechnic Institute of Slavosk, young, intelligent, and adventurous. Their names would one day be carved into granite memorials. And in that fateful winter, they were simply friends with a shared dream. The plan was a 16-day, 190-mile trek through the harsh winter terrain. Completing it would earn them their Level 3 certification, the highest in the Soviet Union. Few could claim it. The group travelled first by train, then truck, and finally on skis into the wilderness. They carried heavy packs, but spirits were high. The diaries paint a picture of camaraderie. We sang and sang, of course. I totally lost my voice. Things started to make sense. The discussion now was about happiness. They tried to give a definition of happiness, but everyone had its own way. They took photographs constantly. Smiling faces, frozen beards, skis lined outside the tent, the wide expanse of the Urals. But mixed among the cheerful snapshots were strange images. Blurred streaks of light in the sky, figures half seen in the snow, photographs that decades later would ignite speculation, UFOs, secret tests, and something much more sinister. Dead Mountain. The hikers had traversed over Ospia, following the native trail made by the Mansi people. They took photos of the indigenous markings along with scribbles of the signage and the meanings behind their findings in their diaries, noting that this would be the last time following the man-made trails. Tomorrow they blazed their own path towards Dead Mountain. Diary excerpt, Kolmogorova. Mansi trail ended. Pine forest. There was sun in the morning, now was cold. All day long we walked along Ospia. We'll spend the night on a Mansi trail. By January 31st, they had reached the foot of Kolat Cycle. Its harsh terrain bared little nourishment from wildlife. Harsh winds brought with it bad weather. Dyatlov, determined to keep their route, made a fateful decision. They camped on the slope itself. Decreasing visibility from an approaching storm forced them off course, onto the mountain's exposed slope. This photo shows them building a platform for their shelter, and serves as one of the last images recorded. It was their last night alive. The search. When the group missed their return date, Yuri's concerns grew. Expecting a telegram of their completion, rescue teams were dispatched. On February 26th, they found the tent. It was half buried, its canvas slashed open from the inside. Inside lay their boots, coats, food, journals, cameras. Bizarrely, all neatly arranged, as if nothing were wrong. They even found a half-eaten meal left behind. Outside, a time capsule of events, frozen in sub-zero temperatures. 9 sets of footprints led away. Barefoot, in socks, one with a shoe, calm, deliberate, intentional steps into the snow. Something had driven them out, but what? The searchers followed the footsteps. At the edge of the forest, beneath the tall cedar tree, uncommon in this area, rescuers found the remains of a campfire, buried in the snow. Alongside it, the first 2 bodies, Doroshenko and Krivonychenko. Strangely, in -30°C temperatures, they wore only underwear. Krivonychenko's hands were frostbitten, palms torn and bloody from climbing the tree, along with 3rd-degree burns to his shins and feet. And most unusual, in his mouth was a chunk of flesh, bitten from his own right hand. Perhaps an attempt to feel sensation in the numbing cold. A pattern of skin and clothing were found in the branches above. Branches 5 meters up were broken. Perhaps they tried climbing in desperation to find their campsite. Maybe they were gathering wood, or were they trying to get away from something? Rescuers expanded the search area, and 3 more bodies were found between the tree and the tent: Dyatlov, Kolmogorova, and Slobodin. They had died facing uphill, bodies frozen as if they were trying to run back to the camp. Dyatlov's fists were clenched with a facial expression of grit determination. Kolmogorova's face bore deep bruises. Slobodin's skull was horrifically fractured, consistent with falling repeatedly. Doroshenko's skin was brown and purple with deep bruising, yet no nearby rocks or stumps had evidence that the fall had occurred. With 4 bodies still remaining, the search went cold. The discovery. In May, when the snow began melting, a local hunter found a makeshift den 250 feet from the cedar tree. Cut 10 feet deep, strewn along the den floor were pieces of torn clothing and branches, black sweatpants with the right leg cut off, the left half of a woman's sweater, perhaps an attempt at insulating the floor. The final 4 were discovered within the collapsed den in a ravine alongside running water: Dubinina, Brignol, Kolvatov, and Zolotaryov. Criminal investigators were brought in to determine if there was foul play. Their injuries horrified even investigators. Brignol's skull was severely shattered. Dubinina's ribs were crushed inwards. Her eyes and tongue were missing. Zolotaryov's chest was caved in and eyes were removed. Kolvatov's nose was broken and neck was twisted unnaturally. The post-mortems. Autopsies revealed disturbing details. The force came from within. It looked like they had imploded. Foul play was eliminated because no human could generate that kind of force to create this level of damage. And yet their skin had no soft tissue damage like cuts or abrasions, which perplexed even the investigators. It looked like the impact of a car crash or the explosion of a bomb. The most mysterious of all, 3 articles of clothing were found to have abnormal radioactivity. Radiological studies claim that under normal circumstances, an area of 150 cubic centimeters should not exceed 5,000 disintegrations per minute. Only 3 articles of clothing exceeded or equaled that limit at 5,000 dpm, 5,600 dpm, and 9,900 dpm. The only explanation given in the report is that the clothes were contaminated as radioactive dust fell from the atmosphere, or the clothes were susceptible to contamination when in contact with radioactive substances. Mysteriously, they were unable to determine the exact cause of the clothes' contamination. However, there is an alternative explanation. Kolvatov had previously worked at a facility developing nuclear materials, and Krivonischenko had previously worked at a top-secret plutonium production plant for nuclear weapons. And the 3 articles of radioactive clothing belonged to those men. The other corpses posed more questions than answers. Medical examiners initially believed the victims, at least 5 of them, died from hypothermia, but certain details prove contradicting. Their wounds consistent of blunt force trauma and to have been vomiting blood. They may have eventually died from hypothermia. However, leading up to this, they sustained massive injuries. Things become even more stranger. Neither the searchers nor the loved ones can fathom that a natural accident took the lives of the 9 explorers. Dubinina's medical report reads, "The diaphragm of the mouth and tongue is missing. Soft tissue injuries to the head are post-mortem changes, putrefaction and decomposition to Dubinina's corpse, which was recently exposed to water prior to detection. The stomach contained up to 100 cubic centimeters of a dark slimy mass. That's about 10 quarts of something, most likely food, mixed with something red, most likely blood." Investigators, along with the searchers and victims' families, were in disbelief with these findings. Theories and cover-up. The Soviet government moved quickly. Files were sealed, the area was closed for 3 years, families were silenced. The official explanation? They died from an unknown compelling force. But whispers spread. Some claimed a Mansi tribe attack, but there were no footprints except the hikers. Perhaps they had covered their tracks. Yet the Mansi people were deemed peaceful prior to this incident. Others said it was a secret weapons test, parachute mines, or a shockwave that caused internal injuries. Theory states that the abrasive, almost concussive sound of nuclear testing could have driven the hikers from their tents. Even the chief investigator of the incident believes in a similar theory. In 1990, just over 30 years later, Ivanov was interviewed by a small Kazakh newspaper. He claims that both he and other investigators noticed that the pine trees near Dyatlov Pass were burned at the top, as though by some sort of fuel or fire. He also states that 2 of his superiors forced him to remove any mention of unknown flying objects, including a testimony involving orange orbs which could have been pivotal in the investigation. Nearby, another group of explorers witnessed mysterious objects in the sky the same night of the event. UFOs. Glowing orbs in the sky reported that night. Around the time of the hikers' disappearance, numerous sources claimed to have seen UFOs in the form of orbs of light moving across the night sky for a few seconds up to several minutes. These include 3 soldiers and 2 different hiking groups. Some witnesses also claimed that the indigenous Mansi population, as well as a group of geologists, had told them that they had observed orange fireballs in the sky around the time of the incident. The problem with UFO sightings is that they are, well, unidentified and often unverifiable as a result. Only one of the hiking groups reported to have seen a UFO during the night of the incident, while the other sightings occurred before or after. Then there's this. These are the last photos taken with one of the hikers' cameras. It appears to be a photo of an object taken in the middle of the night. Unfortunately, the photos are about as undescriptive as the UFO it is claimed to depict. Could, no doubt, be a photo of a UFO. It could, no doubt, be a photo of a plane, the moon, a flashlight, or anything else. But let's assume that this is a photo of something in the night sky. What could it possibly be depicting? Some pointed to KGB involvement. Some hikers had connections to sensitive research. Was the expedition a cover-up for something else? The oldest member of the group at age 37, Semyon Zolotaryov, joined the group at the last minute. He was a combat veteran with years of military service who eventually went to work for the NKVD, better known as the Soviet Secret Police, and before transferring to the physics department at UPI. He worked in Moscow at a top-secret scientific facility known as PO Box 3394, and Yuri Krivonychenko worked at PO Box 404-10, where a massive nuclear accident occurred in 1957. Some investigators are convinced that this group was not gathered by accident. The histories of at least 3 of these hikers show a lot of KGB connection. The true objective of their mission, unknown to the other members, was to deliver radioactive samples to a group of agents of the CIA and take pictures of these spies. At the beginning of the journey, all the hikers had cameras and journals. We saw them. But when Kolvatov's body was discovered, his journal and camera were missing, and he was one of the suspected spies. Nobody has been able to come up with the definitive answer, although there were natural explanations too. A slab avalanche, invisible by the time the rescuers arrive. 2 scientists think they've solved the mystery of Dyatlov Pass, and they used the movie Frozen to prove their theory. Though the avalanche theory has been mostly dismissed, a new theory has been proposed that the hikers were hit by a very specific and rare kind of avalanche. Johann Gohm, a scientist who studied snow phenomena, was watching the movie Frozen when Gohm noticed that Disney had created very realistic snow movement. He worked with the studio animators to develop a model that shows the group could have been hit by what's called a delayed slab avalanche. This kind of avalanche occurs when you affect the warm, wet snow at the bottom of a slope. This causes the entire face of snow to eventually move at once. An avalanche only requires 20 degrees to trigger. Now, the Dyatlov camp was built at 23 degrees. Gohm believes that when they cut into the snow to build their tent, it started a countdown. They initiated a chain reaction of micro disturbances that took a few hours to propagate. Trapped under the slab, the group might have panicked and cut their way out. The injuries sustained by some of the group would have been consistent with the slab hitting them at full force. Gohm says it is possible that such a slab avalanche would have injured them consistent with the post-mortem examination. Yet, everything that happened after the avalanche is out of the scope of their paper. Inconvenient results at best, as weather reports state it wasn't snowing that night, although the hikers did have journal entries about howling winds. The next theory says that they were psychologically terrorized. A phenomenon known as Cobaltic and Kármán vortex street winds can induce panic and tremors on the mountain slope. These can penetrate thick concrete walls and induce psychological panic due to their long wavelength are noticeable to human hearing, inducing deep rumbling in the body and feelings of unsteady vibrations. Cobaltic winds fall down a slope and quickly gain speed due to gravity. The winds become hurricane force. They were absolutely detected by local weather stations that night. So the theory is the hikers cut out a space in the snow for their tent, which disturbed the slab. Perhaps katabatic winds started blowing snow on top of the slab above the tent, and over the course of hours, the weight of the snow above the camp reached critical mass, potentially pushing against the tent, inducing terror in the minds of the hikers to evacuate the camp in fear of an avalanche. Cutting their way out just in time, the entire avalanche follows, injuring the campers. Just a small avalanche, maybe 5 by 5 meters, would have been enough to cover the camp, but not enough snow that the rescue team would have noticed, especially since they didn't arrive at the scene for 26 days. Yuri Yudin, the survivor that lived with grief, often visited their graves. I'll never know why I was spared. I'll never know what happened to my friends. The mystery remains. Hey, my name's Nathan and this is my vision. Thanks for making it this far in the video. I'd greatly appreciate you subscribing so you can see the next and leaving a comment of your thoughts and feelings. I'll be sure to reply to your message. Support me on Patreon for the full uncensored version of this video for as little as $1 a month. You'll get access to exclusive content along with my full library of videos. Thanks for watching.